The little girl collapsed beside the empty bus stop bench just as the afternoon sun burned through the thin winter clouds, her small hands clutching a ragged toy with one missing eye, the only thing she had left in the world. People passed her without stopping, their shadows stretching long across the pavement, and no one noticed how her stomach ached with hunger or how her lips trembled as she tried not to cry. She had learned that crying didn't bring help. Crying only made people walk faster. Before the story continues, take a moment and gently tap like, leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Only kindness, if you truly believe that kindness deserves second chances and that even the darkest days can change. Her name was Maria, and she was 7 years old. The sun was still high in the sky, cars rushing past, horns echoing, the world very much alive, yet she felt invisible inside it. Her shoes were too big, held together by fraying laces, and her jacket was little more than thin fabric that did nothing to keep out the cold. The ragged toy she held had once been a stuffed bear, now flattened and stained from months of sleeping on concrete and cardboard. She had found it in a trash pile long ago and named it Saul, because it reminded her of warmth. Saul was her pillow, her friend, and her shield against fear. Maria had not always been alone. She remembered a small apartment flooded with daylight, a cracked window that let the breeze in, and a mother who hummed softly while cooking rice. Those memories felt like scenes from someone else's life now. After her mother disappeared, the world became loud and confusing. One shelter passed her to another, then one night she simply slipped away, too afraid to stay, too small to know where to go. Hunger became normal, so did the ache in her chest that came from being forgotten. By early afternoon, her legs had stopped working properly. She hadn't eaten since the previous morning, and even that had only been half a stale roll. Her vision blurred as she leaned against the bench, hugging Saul close. She tried to imagine warmth, tried to imagine food, tried to imagine a future where she wasn't scared of every adult face that passed by. She didn't notice the distant rumble at first, a low vibration that grew louder with every second. The sound rolled through the street like thunder. Dozens of motorcycles appeared at the end of the road, chrome flashing in the sunlight, engines roaring in deep, powerful harmony. People turned to stare. Some stepped back, others crossed the street. The group rode slowly, deliberately, as if they owned the road. Leather jackets, heavy boots, patched vests with the unmistakable markings of the Hell Angels. To many, they were a symbol of fear, trouble, and danger. Maria shrank into herself when the noise reached her. She had learned that loud usually meant unsafe. She wrapped her arms tighter around Saul and lowered her head, hoping she would disappear. The motorcycles pulled into a loose line near the bus stop, engines cutting off one by one until the street fell into an uneasy quiet. The sudden silence was almost worse. One of the bikers noticed her then. His name was Rourke Calder, a broad-shouldered man with graying hair pulled back under a worn bandana. He had seen a lot in his life, but something about the way the girl sat there, so small, so still, made his chest tighten. She wasn't begging, she wasn't running, she was simply waiting, as if she had accepted that nothing good was coming. The group had stopped for a routine break, nothing special. Yet the sight of the child shifted something invisible in the air. Rourke stepped away from his bike, his boots heavy on the pavement, and crouched a short distance from Maria so he wouldn't tower over her. He noticed the bruises on her knees, the dirt on her cheeks, the way her fingers trembled as she clutched the toy. The other bikers watched in silence. Men like Silas Boone, towering and scarred, known for his temper. Lena Cross, one of the few women in the group, sharp-eyed and fiercely protective of those she cared about. And Jonas Pike, younger, quieter, carrying the weight of his own painful childhood. Each of them felt it too, that uncomfortable pull in the chest, the reminder of something human they often buried beneath leather and steel. Maria slowly looked up. Her eyes were huge, dark, and hollow with exhaustion. She expected anger. She expected to be told to leave. Instead, she saw concern, awkward and unsure, written across faces she had been taught to fear. Her stomach growled loudly, betraying her, and she looked down in shame. What happened next unfolded slowly, almost cautiously, like a fragile bridge being built one plank at a time. Rourke reached into the saddlebag on his bike and pulled out a wrapped sandwich, still fresh from a roadside diner. He set it gently on the bench, then stepped back. No pressure, no sudden moves, just an offering. Maria stared at the sandwich as if it might vanish. Hunger overpowered fear. She reached for it with one hand, still clutching Saul with the other, and took a small bite. Then another. Tears slid silently down her cheeks as she ate, not from pain, but from the overwhelming relief of being fed without being asked for anything in return. The bikers didn't rush her. They didn't speak. They stood there in the daylight, massive figures casting long shadows, guarding a little girl while she ate. Lena returned to her bike and brought back a bottle of water, placing it beside Mireia. Jonas shrugged off his heavy jacket and laid it carefully around the girl's shoulders when he noticed her shivering. She froze for a moment, then relaxed when she felt the warmth. Passers-by slowed, confused by the scene. The Hell Angels, often misunderstood and feared, were forming a quiet circle of protection around a hungry child at a bus stop in broad daylight. Phones came out, whispers spread, but the bikers didn't care. Their focus stayed on Mireia. As the food disappeared and color slowly returned to her face, Mireia's eyes followed their movements. She noticed how careful they were, how no one raised their voice, how they watched the street instead of her, as if making sure nothing bad could reach her. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe without knowing exactly why. Rourke made a call, his voice low and steady. He spoke to people he trusted, people who knew how to help without making things worse. The wait that followed was filled with small acts of kindness. Lena found a clean napkin and wiped Mireia's hands. Silas offered her a small chocolate bar, smiling awkwardly when she smiled back for the first time. Jonas fixed the torn seam on Saul with a bit of thread he carried, his large fingers clumsy but gentle. Time passed, measured not by minutes but by heartbeats. When help finally arrived, it wasn't sirens or shouting. It was calm voices, warm blankets, and professionals who knelt down to Mireia's level. The bikers didn't vanish when they showed up. They stayed until Mireia was ready to stand, until she knew she wasn't being abandoned again. As she was guided toward the waiting vehicle, Mireia turned back. Her small hand waved, Saul tucked under her arm, Jonas's jacket still around her shoulders. Rourke tapped his helmet in a silent promise. Not goodbye, just see you again. The motorcycles roared back to life shortly after, disappearing down the sunlit road, leaving behind a story no one who witnessed it would forget. The bus stop looked the same, but something invisible had changed. Kindness had been there. Protection had been there. Humanity had shown itself where no one expected it. If this story is touching your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Only Kindness so more stories like this can reach the world. Days later, Mireia would sleep in a real bed, sunlight streaming through a clean window, Saul resting beside her. She would remember the sound of engines not as fear, but as rescue. She would remember leather jackets not as danger, but as shelter. And she would grow up knowing that kindness sometimes comes wrapped in the most unexpected forms. Filled up pointing triangle before the ending, please write in the comments what kindness means to you or if you've ever experienced help from someone you never expected. Because stories like Mireia's remind us that even in the middle of an ordinary day, when the sun is high and life rushes by, a single act of compassion can change everything, and sometimes, the angels we fear are the ones who save us.